Welcome back, you guys. Of course, today I'm joined by Joe Tweedie, and we're going to discuss Thomas Tuchel and who his number 9 is at Chelsea Football Club. We've seen a variation of different strikers used. We've seen false nines used as well, and we're potentially going to see Kai Havertz as a false 9 at times throughout the season. So we're going to discuss what the best possible number 9 could be for us, what Tuchel could do, and without wasting any more time, Joe, how you doing, man?
Yeah, really good, mate. Yeah, feeling a bit more positive after the draw. I'm looking forward to the Liverpool game now. So yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's crazy how Liverpool's form has completely dived. I mean, I had a feeling that they weren't going to maintain that same momentum from last season, but to be honest, yeah, I have a tiny bit of sympathy for Liverpool in the sense that I think in the 06-07 season, we
just lost 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah, you guys stay with me. But I just remember in the 06-07 season when we had injuries at the back, when we had like Essien playing right back most of the season, Ferreira, Asana Diarra as well. So, you know, that definitely affected us getting a title that season. But I mean, this isn't a Liverpool fan channel. We're here to talk about Tuchel and number 9s. And I think the first thing I want to ask you is, what is your perspective and take on some of the solutions that Tuchel has been using in the last few games?
Oh, this is a tough one to answer properly. I think the problem that we have at the moment at the club is that by not having like a completely obvious choice to play week in, week out, like we don't have Diego Costa up front anymore. We know Diego Costa is going to start 9 times out of 10. And I think this kind of split or kind of rotation that we've seen between forwards, where you have, you know, kind of Tammy or Giroud, and then you've occasionally got Timo Werner up there, and then a little bit more recently this kind of false 9 system that we've kind of dipped in and out of. I think it makes it so hard for Tuchel and also the players to start developing any sort of real kind of ability to play patterns in terms of patterns of play, in terms of like trying to develop like a generic style identity. And you can't get any more different from looking at, let's say, Giroud to Werner. You know, Werner wants to play on the shoulder, he wants to get in behind, wants to use his pace. And I do feel a little bit for him in the fact that we rarely do we ever look in his way in terms of trying to play early.
Yeah.
If you have somebody who you know, they don't really want it to feet, they're not going to play back to goal, they're not going to try and play on the half turn. You know, they want you to release them so they can sort of run in and try and get a shot off. But then you compare that to Giroud, who I felt was, pretty poor. I actually felt it was pretty poor against Helvetico by the goal, but I thought it was very poor against United in terms of what he was doing.
Yeah, I thought it was very disappointing, to be honest.
Yeah, super disappointing. And you have this almost complete polar opposite in terms of styles. So from one week, you can see the team are maybe trying to build up to play maybe slightly more direct, maybe more aggressive, and maybe longer when they've got Timo Werner there. Then it becomes a question of trying to play into feet using Giroud's ability to hold the ball up, his ability to occupy defenders. That naturally creates different aspects that you want from midfield. You need more midfield runners, you need more bodies around the second ball. And then, you look at this, Tammy is kind of a mixture of the two. He's a little bit more mobile, maybe a little bit less better at this point in his career at holding up like Giroud, but he's sort of the kind of the medium between the two. Yeah. Then obviously now with this sort of Mason Mount and potentially Havertz in the future or someone else playing this false 9 position, again, you're completely changing the dynamic of the team. And I know in sort of previous episodes, we've spoken about consistency, we've spoken about chemistry, we've spoken about build up and all this sort of stuff. I think it's so difficult for really kind of your base players to get a feel for the game in terms of how they're meant to interact with the forward, when it can basically change from game to game what the expectation is. And we know that we've got players who are very, very much suited to specific systems, very specific styles, and then trying to get them to maybe open up and play a slightly different way. Looking at the patient possession style that Kovacic and Jorginho are very, very good at under Tuchel. But then now we want you to play longer. We want you to play direct to Werner. We want you to start playing, through balls from 40, 50 metres away. It doesn't really kind of, I think, allow the team to best get accustomed to who's playing up top. So I think that is going to be the big problem that we see for the rest of the season, is that because we don't have an outstanding candidate up front, it's very difficult to build a style based on your forward. And probably maybe in a way explains a little bit why Tuchel's gone very much building from the back and building and making sure we're solid. Because perhaps maybe he's looking at the team and saying, actually, you know what, there's not an outstanding candidate to really build the team around. We're going to have to chop and change. So I'm just going to try and keep things solid and hopefully, ride the hot hand in terms of whichever forward or Mount or whoever it is going to play that false 9 role. Try and ride their form into scoring.
Yeah. I definitely agree, and I think for me what's quite interesting, yeah, as you were alluding to, when you use certain players up front with a certain attributes, certain characteristics, it does mean that maybe you have to, slightly variate how you play towards those strengths and create those opportunities for them. I really feel for me, strikers are like the icing on the cake. They're supposed to just complement whatever the structure of the team is, and considering we play a more possession style game, which suits quite a few of the players, it pushes me more towards possibly a false nine system in that sense, because I feel like we have the wide players, in particular Hudson-Odoi. I think I'd like to see him be played more on the right wing or left wing, which I think is his best position, and I'd like to see him build some types of like form and consistency in that role, because I know he's 20 years old, but I'm thinking about Callum, he's going to be 23, 24, 25, and I think playing in your best position now helps you get to the place where you do like achieve your goals. Even someone like Christian Pulisic as well, seeing how he's been under Tuchel, he hasn't been as explosive. There's been certain games where he has been played in that front three role, and he's not even able to carry the ball as much, dribble past opponents like he's normally able to, and even his game has adapted too. So I don't know, I just find it very interesting. I think obviously when I saw Mason Mount play false nine, and no surprise that he could fulfill that type of role. I personally think that Kai Havertz would be extremely suited to something like that, and I think that could translate to us potentially even becoming a back four team as well, using a false nine system on top of that too. How do you feel about seeing Kai Havertz as the number 9 for this season? I think, just adding very quickly, because getting used to the Premier League, the intensity, especially in a very difficult season like this, I keep saying all the players that were signed from abroad, they've had their difficulties for every club, and I think there's no surprise behind that. And I don't know, I just think considering allowing Kai to even acclimatise more into the league, taking away some of those defensive responsibilities, and allowing him to do what he's best at, which is attacking the spaces inside the box, finishing the moves, scoring goals, which he was doing for Leverkusen. That's how he made his name. I feel like false nine is the best way to get the best out of both worlds.
Yeah, I think certainly now at this point in the season, you're looking at maybe earlier in the season reasons to not play him, because you've got loads of centre forwards and you want to kind of give them more various game time. I think the fact that nobody has really kind of stepped up to the plate to take that spot, I think it would certainly be an interesting time, probably something I would actually look at personally, to see now Havertz sort of playing this kind of false nine role. Maybe he's surrounded by Mason Mount, maybe he's got Callum on the left, Mount on the right, and then those two interchange. Even then you could see Kai obviously drifting to the right, Mason taking that central role, same with Callum. And I think it kind of now is at a point where it does sort of make complete sense. He has the ability to hold the ball up, he has the ability to drop into dangerous spaces. I still think, although we haven't seen it much this season, like somebody who watched him a lot at Leverkusen, he does have that X factor in terms of finding that pass in the final third.
Yeah,
he's very good in the air. I think he's a great header of the ball, very good finisher in terms of those positions that he likely gets in. And then when you're talking about combination play and sort of generating those moments and creating better shooting opportunities, the potential of getting him into some sort of form and then playing combinations with Callum, with Mason, etc. I don't think that's a kind of combination of players that many defences will really want to play up against. You've got three guys there potentially who are great one-touch players, great at receiving the ball in tight spaces, can find a pass, can get a shot off. And I think that those potentially as a front three, even if with Kai as a 9, and then these kind of two inside forward 10s or whatever you want to call them, that Mason and Callum potentially will occupy. I just think that it adds a lot more dynamism to that area. And again, when you're looking at a team that I think even with those guys up front, it's still going to be very patient and very deliberate build up. It's going to be very specific in how we move the ball. Yeah. Having maybe three guys that can actually inject a little bit of tempo, inject a little bit of quality, and have maybe certainly in terms of Kai and Callum, and probably Mason as well, to his credit, have the ability to make a little bit of space and produce a little bit of quality and a little bit of magic to get a shot off and to score goals. So yeah. I think it probably does complement the way that the team is set up. And I am a little bit curious as to maybe why Tuchel hasn't sort of looked at it at the moment, it could be again that Havertz is sort of just about coming up to speed in terms of coming back from injury and sort of all the difficulties he's faced this season. But going forward, that false nine role looks really, really interesting to me, because I think, again, you know, we both watched him the back end of last season of Leverkusen. He was just scoring goals for fun, but he has the kind of profile that can link that midfield, link the wide areas, link up with the wing backs, and I think actually would be something really, really interesting to watch. Certainly, you know, going forward, it's worth a try, because I think, as we've suggested on this and the previous episode, nobody's really putting their hand up and saying, I am Chelsea's number 9.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's really saying that this is my position. You know, you've really got to come and battle me to try and take it from me. So I'd like to see him play, and I think, again, it takes away some of the defensive responsibility. Maybe he's not, you know, asked to do as much running, and you're kind of putting him in the sort of dangerous areas that you want your kind of superstar player to be in. So I think it makes complete sense from that perspective.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. For me, I think 2 strike combinations that I think could definitely give us some better balance going forward would be, you know, a combination of Havertz, false 9, and Tammy Abraham. I think Tammy being that all-round player. I think this is something, I feel like this is something we constantly say all the time. You know, Tammy has always been more of a fox in the bush poacher type of striker that hasn't really had to get involved in other aspects of the game. I mean, if Aston Villa, he was literally you could say he was like the Haaland of Villa in that sense, that he was just, finishing moves off and, timing his runs expertly, you know, creating the danger in the box, creating space for himself inside the box. And, you know, since he signed for us, he has adapted more. Of course, you know, aspects of his game will definitely improve, definitely need to get better at. I think obviously the hold-up play, you know, I think as he grows into his frame, that will come. I think obviously, just overall aspects. But I think when you look at his overall game, I feel there's a reason why so many players kind of combine well off him. I mean, no surprise to me that Havertz scored a hat-trick playing off of Tammy Abraham. We saw those back flicks that Tammy was playing in that game. I know the opposition was very weak. However, it was the understanding that we saw immediately in one game. We've seen how, you know, players have played off Tammy as well, how they've, you know, operated off the space he creates for them to run into. And I think, considering all the players we signed this summer, Kai, Werner, etc., they are players that do operate with space in the final thirds. I think with Havertz in particular, Leverkusen first half of last season, he really struggled playing in his normal number 10 role because there wasn't much space to play in. And there was a reason why, you know, he played on the right hand side of a front three, of a 3-4-3, and why he was then moved to a false 9, because, you know, it kind of encapsulated all his strengths and qualities. And I don't know, I just feel like these 2 are the ones I want to see, because I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking, okay, if Haaland's the guy that's going to come in next summer, I get worried about the lack of attacking cohesion, because I'm thinking, okay, let's say we're a team that's only used to playing in a false 9, for this example. What then happens when Haaland comes in? And then I'm thinking, well,
it's like the complete opposite of a false 9.
That's what I mean. Then I'm thinking, okay, ideally you want to be seeing Haaland playing off of Havertz, and then what's the formation then going to be? What's the system going to be? And I think, you know, if there's talks of us having a title challenge next season, I believe just because you spend a lot of money on big name players doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be competing for anything. I look at Liverpool as a prime example, and you can see the escalation of their game. You know, every year they added improvements, became stronger, became like finer tuned, and you know, they were able to base off their good work every season based on the framework left the previous season. And you know, already we've seen so many different ways we've been playing. We've got, as we always say, you know, it feels like we've got 2 teams in one squad. I feel like when Tuchel makes a decision for his false 9, it also is going to have future ramifications as well. I mean, for his striker, it's not his false 9.
Yeah. And this is a little bit in terms of kind of making, I suppose, decisions now on which kind of side of the squad he's leaning towards. He's very much leaning towards the experienced players at this point. But then going into next season, do you really want the same group of players who have largely been pretty bad in terms of Premier League finishes? You know, on average 30 points off the champions in the past 3 seasons. Yeah, that's not a particularly good look for a Chelsea squad. That's, you know, you're disappointed if you finish 6 points off of top normally for most seasons that we've kind of been playing. And I think one of the really fascinating things, just sort of a slight aside here, is that in the season we don't speak about, the 2015-16 season, I think we only finished like 31 points off the top during that season. And yet the past 3 seasons we finished like basically 30, 26, 33, etc. While finishing in the top 4. So that season that we think is absolutely dreadful probably is not so bad given how far we finished off the top recently as well. But in terms of Tuchel finding the right structure and picking the right team or the right players to build around, I do think that there is a little bit of a danger in terms of picking the false nine system, because if you do then manage to somehow sign Erling Haaland, he is the absolute complete opposite of the false nine. He's the 9, like he's the reference point, the spearhead, the tank, whatever you want to call him. He is going to be what you build the team around. And then you're effectively saying that all of the work that you've done to get there from this point until the end of the season, okay, let's throw that away and let's start again in pre-season. So it's very, very tricky in terms of long-term planning. I think it's a little bit why maybe Tuchel is trying to compartmentalize this season. Like, let's just get to the end and then we'll try and figure things out in the summer. I'm trying not to pay massive amounts of attention to selections and systems and stuff, because I do think when given the option and when given hopefully having a pre-season this season, I think the system and I think the personnel will potentially change as well. But it is a very good point and an important point for people to know that, again, if you are going to a system that's super specific in terms of like the false 9, playing a striker who's effectively dropping deep, leaving no one to mark, etc. up front, that is a very specific and a very unique style of play. And if we get good at that, and then actually in the summer it's okay, we've been pretty decent at this, but now we're just going to bring in basically the biggest tank in world football to play up front and to be the figurehead, be the spearhead, be the talisman. You're just discarding a ton of work that you've put in over the course of the next couple of months to see that through. And again, you're kind of starting potentially at ground zero again, which is not the best thing that potentially you want to be doing for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think when Tuchel took over, he definitely knew that he had a very big job in his hands. It's not easy for any manager to come into a situation like this where I feel like there is like a bit of a strong imbalance. I mean, it's crazy that we can play like 2 different styles of football, so a pretty high level, and still not have that one defined style of play just yet. I think that will come over time, but as we're alluding to in this conversation, it's about what other signs we're going to see now that's going to paint towards a picture of the future. I don't know. I think to end this conversation, would you agree that Giroud maybe is the least priority in that sense, just from a tactical point of view?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think the thing with Giroud, again, just to sort of round this off, is that I think his best role is as an impact sub and as a guy who rotates in to give others rest.
Yeah.
I think we see that he'll come in, he'll play well, there'll be screams from fans that he should be starting, he's better than X, Y, Z. And then you get the kind of performances we've seen lately. And the Atletico goal, fantastic moment. But if we're looking purely at the performance levels, he's not been at it the past couple of games.
Not been as involved too,
So I mean, all that being said, I think for me, from what you've just said, he is certainly the lowest down the priority. And then you can kind of take your pick in terms of the systems. You either go with being more direct with Timo, you sort of look at having just a more probably well-rounded and more mobile player in Tammy up there, or you persist with Mason Mount or potentially Havertz as a false 9, and then try and build a very specific game plan and game model to tackle that personnel change.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like one player we haven't even discussed is Mr. Timo Werner. Werner, is he a player that has a potential future playing up front, or would that future have to depend on playing alongside a striker alongside him?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there. His success in Germany, and I think again when I've looked at him play for the German national team when he's played as a lone striker, I think his success has come from playing with a target man. And again, I mean, if you're looking into next season, maybe you are combining him and potentially a Haaland up front, and then that is your combination of guys who are going to possibly win you the league. If Werner can, he may never be the most technically sound player, but if he's going to score 20, 30 goals a season by being chaos and playing off a proper striker, I don't think anyone's going to turn their nose up to that. But as a lone centre forward, I think the more that I've watched him and spent watching him this season, I just think he lacks so many basic components of what makes a good Premier League centre forward. He's got a very poor first touch. And I think that's also that carries through when you watch him dribble, like the heavy touches that he takes at times when he's dribbling.
Heads down. It's down, really down. And I mean,
Atletico Madrid, the ball that Mason played through to him. I don't know if it was his first or second touch that took him so far away from the goal. But that's just a regular occurrence. So I do feel a little bit like he doesn't have the finesse to play the kind of striker that Chelsea needs, which is someone who can deal with a low block, that can play back to goal, that is a little bit more cute, maybe has a little bit more finesse and ability to kind of create their own chances. We're not really going to be facing that many opponents that play the kind of line that Leicester see often with Vardy. If Werner went to Leicester, he'd probably get 50 goals a season in terms of how they play, and they'll play at the top. They'll look for him early. But the style of play that Chelsea have and the way that teams defend against us, until you've got teams who are quite happy to sit on the halfway line, which, I mean, you're not going to do, because Werner is maybe one of the fastest players in the league. I don't think we're really going to see the best out of him as a lone centre forward. So to your point, for me, it's potentially pairing him up with another player, whether that is Tammy, whether that is Haaland, whether it's Giroud, whoever, try and get the best out of him, and see really kind of what you have going into next season. Because even now, this inside forward role that he's playing, I think he still lacks a lot of the technical elements that I would want from someone in that area, particularly when you look at Mason's ability to receive the ball in tight areas. We can build up through Mason in that respect. With Timo, you're kind of, you're rolling the dice in terms of, is he going to retain possession? Are we going to lose the ball? Are we going to be countered? There's so many questions going through your mind. I don't think that role also particularly suits him. So I think either one of the two next season, or Chelsea maybe look to having to potentially change some of the way that we play the game and go a little bit longer, a little bit more direct, a little bit more aggressive in terms of some of that passing. But it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I think obviously this conversation, we've been able to get an idea on some of the difficulties that Tuchel has at his hands. We understand the strengths and cons of each player in the number 9 position as well. And it is a bit of a personal frustration. I don't know, a slight part of me felt like, obviously, when we signed these guys, I kind of understood what the plan was going to be. I think it gives me like more context and hindsight now in regards to maybe Lampard's decisions and his use of these guys, like playing Havertz as a number 8 midfield player. Obviously having Werner in the same role, in my opinion, as how he's being used now. I mean, I'm seeing Werner even wider. Playing left wing back at times with Alonso being the guy in field. So I don't think that's become any different in my personal opinion. But again, it just gives me more context behind why Lampard picked those certain decisions he had to try and build some type of attacking consistency. Because for me, I think it's much easier building a defense up compared to building an attack and getting that functioning and getting that chemistry on point. But just to end things, man, if you had to give your player that you're hoping Tuchel should maybe stick with out of the options we have now, who's your number 9?
This is tougher than what I thought. Actually, I thought I was going to come straight with an answer, and then I've just because I'm torn between. I still think that Tammy's worth persisting with. I'm torn between Tammy and then potentially seeing Kai Havertz down the middle. For the sake of a bit of variety, I'll go with Kai, because I would really like to see him up top with support from Callum and from Mason, and just see what that's like as a combination of players. I think, as we've said, it's not like we're sort of disrupting some world-class potent centre forward play here. I think it's an interesting enough combination of players to me, and I would like to see it happen. But I am a little bit torn on Tammy, because I still think that despite all of the flack that he gets, and I think to be honest, a lot of overboard nonsense that gets thrown, kind of gets thrown his way, I think he's still the most well-rounded forward that we have. It's just, again, it's just a question of him continuing to improve his game, sort of game after game and year after year. He's not the finished article yet, but he's got ages to get there, and I think people still massively forget that when they talk about him. So Havertz, with the caveat that I would still like to see Tammy given more of an opportunity.
Yeah, and to be honest, man, I'm going to agree with you. I think it's going to be, Kai false 9 with Tammy as a forward. And I think with Tammy, my main strength with Tammy is that he allows the other guys to play better. I mean, playing with Tammy Abraham up front, I think that would be very beneficial for Christian Pulisic. Tammy's amazing at creating space for runners in behind. Great at running out to the right hand side too. He's got that you know, he's showing the signs that he has the potential to be that complete style forward. You know, you guys that play FM, you know what the complete style forward role is. But, you know, I definitely feel like, you know, just how he plays for the team is very complementary to many of the players we have at this club already. As we're saying, Pulisic's goal record, for example, has gone all the way down compared to last season. And, you know, when he was playing up front with, you know, Tammy and Co, there's a reason why he was able to get inside the books and, you know, demonstrate his finishing abilities. So, I don't know. For me, I'm going to say Tammy, but at the same time, I think Kai could adjust to that false nine role quite well, quite fluidly. But then at the same time, you know, who's going to be playing alongside him? You know, when I see Tammy and Kai together, you do see that, you know, that little bit of that spark, a little bit of, you know, sexiness at times. But then, why did I even bring that up? Because then if you were to use Tammy and Kai up front, what the hell is the midfield going to be? I'm not even going to discuss that right now, you guys. But on that note, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you for watching. In the comments below, give your thoughts and opinions behind what number 9 do you think Tuchel should use? Of course, state your reasons why. Let's keep this a debate. Let's keep this a conversation. And on that note, I'll catch you guys later.